Anyway, my name is Judy Hellberg. I am the president of the Pacifica Historical Society, so I get to start this off. Just so you know, in case you're in the witness protection program or something, we are recording this for our archives. So if you don't want your picture taken, hide your head. We are going to stand for the national anthem, because this is a baseball game after all. And the national anthem will be played by Gail Edwards' flute group, was played at a Giants game, and Susan Steller, back there waving her hand, was in this group. So she got to do this. So we now do the national anthem.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise your caps as we honor America. And here now to perform the Star Spangled Banner, please welcome the Gems Flute Choir under the direction of Gail Edwards.
Of the day, Horace Henshaw, who is going to be your moderator for this event.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you very much.
Say, play ball!
Right, play ball. Exactly right. And for those who do not know me, I am Horace Henshaw, and I've been writing about these athletes, many in the room already here for like over 50 years. So we thought it'd be a good time to put a program together. Several months ago, several copies of Keith Hernandez's book showed up here at the museum. He's talking about his life story, his memoirs. And it seemed to be something that sparked an interest in some of the people who are docents here at the museum. And so we thought, gee, that's really exciting that we've got a hometown boy who's been 16 years playing professional. So it led into the idea that, hey, let's put together a little bit of history of the Little League and girls softball, because in the 40s and 50s and 60s, usually there was nothing there that happened. So around the 60s and 70s, baseball and softball became very popular sport. So we decided it'd be nice to put a program together and share it with people and just let everybody know what's happening. But first, before we go anywhere else, let me introduce our panelists to you. Our first panelist is the brother of Keith Hernandez, Gary Hernandez. Now Gary lives in Burlingame, so he made the trip over to our first panelist. Bill Hooper, who played on the very first team in the very first league in 1957. Diane Hart, who was a member of the early board for the Bobby Sox Softball League. And Derek Reynolds, a Terranova graduate who played 8 years in the major leagues and has the honor of being the last Terranova Pacifican to join the Major League Baseball. So we're looking for some more athletes to pick up the ring and play in the Major League. But right now, Greg has that honor. Keith was unable to join us today. We tried to get him here. He was actually here in San Francisco a couple weeks ago with the New York Mets, but unfortunately his schedule did not allow him to come here. So we tried to do the next best thing, and we got a hold of Gary again. And Gary came through and was able to get together with Keith, and did a little short interview of growing up in Pacifica. So we're going to play that to you now. So enjoy the video and pay close attention to the last clip, as it also features his childhood friend Bob McClure.
3, 2, 1.
Hey there, Pacifica, California, Lindemar Beach, if I recall. It's Keith Hernandez here. I'm very sorry that I can't be with you for this really nice event regarding Little League Baseball in Pacifica growing up in the 60s, early 60s to mid 60s. It was a great experience for me. I have a lot of fond memories of Little League, and I think a lot of it has to do with the parents that were involved. I was the end of the baby boomers towards the end. I was born in 1953, and there were tons of kids that needed to have their sports. And, not only Little League, parents were involved in flag football and getting basketball programs together. But Little League really was a labor of love for the parents around there. Remember, we had the softball field and the Babe Ruth field and White field. Those were the, the 3 fields in Pacifica. And the little pasture land out there with those 3 fields was owned by the monastery, the nunnery, above the hill looking down on the property. And I remember the parents going up there and talking to the nuns and asking them if they could build a second field, a Little League field, which became Grosso Park. And that was spearheaded by Carl Valero and Gino Ottanello, my dad, John Hernandez, and others, Joe Ortega, all parents that wanted their kids, all coming home from World War II, had settled in Pacifica with the GI loan. And it was a rapidly growing area. I remember when we were little kids, there was no police force. It was just Pop the Cop, who was a Wyatt Earp type character, drove an old Ford or Chevy, and he had handlebar mustache and a cowboy hat, and he had, 2 6-shooters, 40 Colt 45s, like a cowboy, and he would bring us lollipops and such when he made his rounds. And then the city Lindemar Valley became too big, and they had to get a police force, of course, and let alone a fire department. And the parents got involved with their kids, and there was a lot of kids. And I remember tons of kids, enough for our league to have, I think, around 6 teams. So think about that. And the parents were very involved. The mothers were involved as well as the fathers. They organized the games. We had great opening days where everybody lined up, the 6 teams in the outfield, and ran around the bases as they were announced individually. So in my case, it would have been Keith Hernandez from Lindemar Realty or Pacifica Lumber or Ed and Jim's 76 gas station, the 3 Little League teams I played for. And it was a great thrill. We were very fortunate to have minor league players who were parents, Carl Valero and my father in particular, that taught us how to play the game and made it fun. And my dad, being a fireman, was able to have, worked 24 hours off 48, And those 48 hours after school, if it was school time, there would be workouts after school. Most of the time, though, baseball's in the summer, but there was time when there was school. And then we were taught how to play the game fundamentally, and we won all the championships. And it was very competitive. There was a lot of great athletes in there. Bob McClure, of course, comes to mind. I played against Bob throughout Little League. I think he was with the Pacifica Angels. I'm not sure. And it was Mr. Thomas was the manager, if I recall. And later on in life, Bob and I would meet up in 1982 World Series for a very dramatic seventh game matchup that I got a base hit, a critical base hit in the seventh inning, I believe, to tie the game. And we went on to win the seventh game of the World Series against the Milwaukee Brewers. And that was my first World Series in 1982. So I can recall knowing I was going to face Bob. I was in the on-deck circle, and I'm sitting up at the plate, and I'm going, my gosh, can you play my first World Series? It's enough pressure, enough anxiety, and enough fun. And now I've got to face a friend who I grew up with in Pacifica. It was really kind of a surreal moment in my life. I'm sure Bob's too. Ironically, Bob lives in Florida, not far from me, maybe 20 minutes from me, half hour. We stay in touch. He's doing very well. And so those are my fond memories. And it's basically were the parents. I mean, Grasso Park was a nice field. I remember my father going down when they planted the grass, and there was really no irrigation system in the beginning. And my dad went down there and watered the lawn on his off time to get the grass growing, and eventually got the city, the parents got the city to put a sprinkler system in there. Can't imagine those parks not having a sprinkler system there to keep the grass growing. But anyway, that's the kind of dedication the parents had there. It was really a family and community endeavor to have the kids be able to play baseball, organized baseball, Little League baseball. It was really quite fun. So Pacifica was at that time, I remember when they were building, we were one of the first neighborhoods in there. And Lindemar Boulevard ran all the way down to the end of the valley. And I remember there was just homes on Lindemar Valley. There was nothing expanding wide. It was just, we'd ride our bikes all the way down to the end of Lindemar Valley. There was no Terra Nova High School back in that area there. It was all dirt roads and places, wonderful places for kids to have fun. And, San Pedro Creek used to, in the spring rains, would overflow, and the steelhead would come and spawn, and we'd have floods. Artichoke fields in the beginning that eventually the farmers sold out and homes were built on. But I was there when there were artichoke fields. We used to traipse through the artichoke fields to go to Lindemar School, grammar school, and there was always Sun Valley Dairy above the Lindemar School, where we would get ice cream bars and all that. It was just a Huckleberry Finn environment there, surrounded by the mountains. The corner of our house was on 1307 Hermosa, right off of Lindemar Boulevard. We were a quarter of a mile from the beach, and we used to ride our bikes everywhere and have a great time. It was like Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. It was just a wonderful, wonderful place to grow up. So I hope that this is satisfactory here. I'm 8 minutes and 17 seconds. I don't want to bore you. But things were so much different back in 1960, 61, 62. There wasn't that overpopulation or population that it is now. It was a great expanse of area for kids just to have fun and all that stuff. And then, we played all three sports. And there was the basketball was the last sport really to get organized. And a lot of that had to do with Marty Coyle And the parents going up to Terra Nova, I remember, and saying to my dad, saying to the basketball coaches, "You got a bunch of kids down here that are young. They're going to be your future teams, and you need to organize. You need to organize some kind of program for basketball. So as they become teenage age in high school, you're going to have these kids playing on your basketball team, and you need to open up your gym. And excuse me, you need to open up your gym and and get the kids to play, which they did. And so it's just really." Parents really thinking about their children and making a better life for us, and I'm forever grateful for that. And there's a lot of parents involved, so I have nothing but fond memories. My grandfather, on my dad's paternal side, came over from Spain, and I often think about his decision. He didn't want to go to New York. He did not. He left around 1910. Saw World War I coming, sold everything, and got on a boat with my grandmother and Isabel, my aunt, who was an infant. And he didn't want to go to New York. He wanted to go to California. So they took the boat all the way around. There was no Suez Canal back then. Took the boat all the way around the Cape of Good Hope, Africa, across the Indian Ocean to the Philippines, which was a Spanish possession then. And then from there went to Hawaii, where he worked in the sugar fields for 7 years, and Maria was born, my aunt, my firstborn in America. And then after 7 years, took the boat with the four of them to San Francisco. And I always think of the fact that if he had gone to New York, my life would have been dramatically different. I couldn't imagine growing up in urban New York metropolitan area, and as opposed to growing up on the West Coast in Pacifica, an entirely agrarian environment, totally different. Like I said, Huckleberry Finn. My life would have been dramatically different, and I'm forever grateful to my grandparents for making that decision, because I was truly blessed to be born in San Francisco and reborn and raised in Pacifica. So I'll leave you with that. And I hope you've enjoyed this little talk. This is the truth coming from the heart, and that's how I feel about Pacifica. Nothing but fond memories. Have a good day.
Ball three. And Herzog can make a move like this. There's Hernandez on deck. And taking Oberkfeller's had a good series out because he's got Ramsey, who's played so well defensively. Ramsey, if tennis gets out, may go into pinch run.
First base open. 3 balls and a strike. And he misses inside. The bases are loaded. Mike Ramsey will run for tennis and undoubtedly stay in the game. Take over defensively at third base. Hernandez, an infield hit, a walk and a strikeout facing Vukovic. Ramsey now carrying the potential go-ahead run. 1 out, force at every base. The thrower infield looking for the double play. And Hernandez, with 6 hits in the last 3 games, trying to get St. Louis even. Ball 1. Mike Caldwell is starting to warm up. In the Milwaukee bullpen, joining Moose Haas, those two starting pitchers. Haas, who started Game 4, Caldwell, who has 2 starts and 2 wins in this World Series, getting ready. 1-0. Big curveball, 1-1. Hernandez on his birthday. All the candles are lit for him. Bases full. Lonnie Smith. Ozzie at third. Lonnie at second. Ramsey at first, the pinch runner. 1 out. Outside. It's 2-1. Oh, the action pitch. 2 balls and a strike. McClure wants to throw a strike, and you know Hernandez is ready to swing, and the bases are full. Ball 3. The Cardinals have already won a game in this series, Game 2 on a bases-loaded walk. McClure has to throw a strike where he throws a run. Hit to right center, base hit. The game is tied.
Memorable moment of World Series, a dramatic confrontation, but also a very emotional one. 2 former high school teammates, McClure and Hernandez, facing each other. 2 RBIs by Hernandez.
All on his birthday. Ramsey making it to third, Hernandez at first. It's even at 3.
Hey, we just got a telephone call here.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
All right. Bob, we just got finished watching the Keith's speech to us about growing up, and we also saw the beginning at the World Series. So welcome to the Pacifica Museum today, where we've got a crowded room of people here just waiting on their bated breath to see what you have to say about how things are going.
What, you're not watching the Warrior game?
75 to 66.
What would you like for?
So, yeah, we got room here. We got people here that are probably going to listen to their cell phones and their radios and things like that later. But right now, we've got your attention. So share with us your memories of Pacifica and your professional baseball career.
Well, first of all, the Warriors are up by 8. You know, growing up where you could ride your bike and go play baseball every single day, you know, was something really special. We grew up in such a special era, you know, where you didn't have to lock all your doors and you could ride your bike anywhere. And, you know, the parents and the people that set up Whitefield and the baseball program, you know, Carl Valeros, the Mr. Hernandez and Brasso, Mr. Moldovan, you know, you just can't say enough about it. It was just fabulous. I'd also like to shout out to the first pro ever, I believe, from Pacifica, Rich Morales. I wanted to say hello if he's there.
He's here. Yes, he's here.
A big thanks to Johnny Valero, because if it wasn't for Johnny Valero and his father Carl, I don't know if I would have ended up playing baseball. They were They're always supportive. They're very encouraging. You know, I was fortunate to get to play on Carl's team for the Joe DiMaggio League that won the state championship. And if we didn't have Whitefield with the baseball fields there and growing up in that atmosphere, I don't know if we would have had that kind of opportunity to grow that fast with those kind of teams. You know, big shout out to the parents and to you, Horace, who have really kept up with this, you know, and kept everyone present about how fabulous the program was. I think that it was a very, very special time for me, I know.
Thanks for those words, Bob. You still there? I think we might have lost you.
Yeah, I am.
And can you share with us the little memory of that World Series game facing Keith?
Well, unfortunately, we lost. It went to 7 games. You know, I had been in the starting rotation the whole year, and I think I had won, 11 or 12 games starting. And then Raleigh Fingers, our closer, got hurt, and I had closed before. So before the series and playoff started, they asked if I would close games, and they were only going to go with 4 starters instead of 5. And I said, sure. And fortunately enough, I got a win in the playoff game that sent us to the World Series, and then I had 2 saves in the World Series, but I also got the loss in the 7th game. So it was great to play in it, and the thing is, can you imagine facing one of the kids you grew up with, a block from each other in the Little League program in Lindemar, and here you both are facing each other in the World Series? I mean, that really is a story. I mean, you know, Lindemar, when we came there in '56, you know, it was a farm town. You know, I remember my mom telling us to go pick artichokes for dinner for a salad, and basically crowd in the creek. She'd say, "Would you get some trout and some crawdads? We'll have that for dinner." And I mean, it's a fabulous place. But
Go ahead.
it still is. It's just a remarkable place to grow up.
Well, Bob, we appreciate you taking time to share that with us. Bob, thank you very much for calling in. We really appreciate it. How about that round of applause? Okay, Bob, thanks again. We'll talk later, okay?
All right, thank you so much. Good luck, everyone. Warriors are up by 7.
Thanks. That wasn't that cool? Yesterday I got a call from Bob because I've been trying to reach him for the last 2 or 3 weeks, and of course he was out of the country. But he called me yesterday, and I said, "Hey, maybe we can get something together that we can put it with Keith's." And of course he was so kind to do that. So Laura called him just now. Of course it's about 5 o'clock there in Florida. But he made mention to 2 gentlemen. I'd like for them to just stand because they have been a part of baseball history for years. And the first one, of course, is Rich Morales right there, our first person to ever play baseball. All those graduates of Westmore High School, we don't hold that against them. And
Excuse me for a minute. Looking around the room, I can see that most of us know something about getting older. These things here, they're like me, they don't work. So I'm just up here to say, let me get out of here.
and the other one we made mention to is John Valero. John, just stand up and wave everybody. John said he coached one of those teams that went to the state championship with Joe DiMaggio, and he also coached at Terra Nova for years, so thanks. Anyway, our thanks to Gary for getting that video of Keith. We really appreciate that, so that worked out good. So thank you, Gary, very much. Today we're talking about the early baseball years of Pacifica. Now, baseball really goes back many, many years in Pacifica. Back to the 40s, they were playing baseball and softball. Women were playing softball too. We found some articles in the old Shark Breakers Tribunes that showed that they were playing, sandlot softball and baseball and things like that. But the first organized baseball team that we can document was in 1948 when a group of merchants helped put together a team called the Coastside Merchants. If you just look up here to the stage up there, there's a team of that first team, and it lists all the sponsors that were sponsoring that team. And of all those people on there, the one team that stands out, and one sponsor stands out, is Nick Gus. He's been sponsoring since 1948, and today he still sponsors teams. So that's remarkable. Yeah, that right there.
Oh, yeah. They were a lot of people those days.
Yes, they were. They were. So once again, our thanks to both Gary Keith and also Bob McClure. So I'm going to start introducing our panelists and let you get an idea of what their lives have been about. And I'm going to start with Gary. Gary himself was a very, very good athlete. He was primarily known for his hitting. He, after graduation from Cappuccino High School, he went to UC California, where in his sophomore year, he was the Pacific 8 hitting champion. He was drafted out of college by the St. Louis Cardinals and played 5 years in the minor leagues. And Gary, can you hold that trophy up behind you and show the people what that's all about and tell us about it?
You mean my brother's trophy?
Your brother's trophy, not your trophy. And he brought 2 trophies with us that Keith had been honored with over the years. I'm going to let you tell about that.
This one right here is, anyway, this is the exact replica of the Hall of Fame plaque for the St. Louis Cardinals. My brother was inducted into the Hall of Fame for the St. Louis Cardinals, I think it was a couple of years ago. So anybody who wants to see that, I mean, it's really quite an honor. There's some great players in that organization, of which Keith is now one. So I thought I brought it if anyone wanted to see it. Obviously, I'm very, very proud, of it. He's also in the Mets Hall of Fame, and he had his number retired last year. One of only 4 players to have his number retired. And he threw out the game ball in front of 45,000 people, and he threw it to me. And I did not drop the ball. But I remember he was supposed to throw it from home, from the pitcher's mound, which of course you have a green background. They moved him over to first, and it was white clouds in the back. I almost lost the ball momentarily. Thank goodness I picked it up. So, this one, not a time to make an error now. So anyway, this happens to be one of 11 gold gloves that my brother has. The most any first baseman has ever had in the history of Major League Baseball. So this happened to be 1979 when he was the batting champion. He was the MVP, obviously the Gold Glove, and the Silver Bat Award winner too. So I guess the moral of the story is Keith got the good hands of the family. I say you always got the money, the looks, and the athletic ability, and I got everything else, which is nothing.
Thanks for sharing that with us, Gary. And perhaps maybe you can just add some comments to Keith's remarks about growing up and sort of adding to his comments.
Well, I think pretty much Keith and Bob said it all. We came from San Francisco to Hermosa Avenue when they just built those houses, little kids, and my dad was a fireman, as was Greg's dad, so he had obviously time to spend with his son. And he would throw tennis balls against us when we were 5 years old, against the garage. And if he hit it over the neighbor's fence, it was a home run. If he hit it off the wall, it was a double. We played all kinds of games there. And my brother used to follow me around. He was my youngest brother. My dad said, you have to watch out for him, whatever. He never had to tell me that. But he always followed along, and he played with the older kids, and I think that really helped him too. Anyway, we went fishing, we went played Army, we played Cowboys and Indians. It was just a great place to grow up, And what I realized later, what I remember, what you don't realize is that when you're a little kid, you get your uniform on, you can't wait to get your uniform on. You're so excited. Opening day, you're running around the base, and you think it's the greatest thing in the world. And you think, hey, these fields just, they're just here, whatever. But when you get older and now your kids are playing, then you know that you're the one that's getting up. You're chalking the fields. You're dragging the fields. My wife is doing the stack shack. You don't really appreciate it until all of a sudden now you're the one that's doing all that. So then you think back on what our parents did and how fortunate we were. And Pacifica was very close community. And if Keith hadn't, there been no Little League, I don't know, we may never heard of Keith, Well, so our roots are Pacifica. We love Pacifica. I drive down here, I drive by my house. I'll probably do it maybe once every 2 months. I just want such good memories. So, anyway.
Thanks, Gary. Super job. Fantastic. Our next panelist is Bill Hooper. Bill has probably seen more Little League games than anyone, particularly in this room anyway, and probably in Pacifica. I won't say his age, but he was 10 years old when his dad signed him up to play Little League in 1957, the first year that the league was formed. Fields were sparse at that time. In the late 1950s, a group of Lindemar dads and men, many who had moved to Pacifica after leaving the military service, began building fields. Whitefield was one of the ones where today Whitefield is no longer in existence. It was built on the site, if you're familiar with the Pacifica Bay Christian School on Lindemar Boulevard. That was 4 fields that were built there, a softball field, a Babe Ruth field, and 2 Little League fields. Then later, of course, we got the Sharp Park School Field and Lindemar Schools and Fairway Park. Whitefield was truly a sports complex. It was fantastic. There were people there every night watching the games, and unfortunately, that's never going to be the case here again to build something like that. But there were hundreds of people that really appreciated that. That was the start of Little League in Pacifica. Unofficially, Little League started June 23rd, 1957, just a few months before Pacifica was incorporated as a city. The movement was started by a gentleman named Claude King with 200 boys playing. The next year, the league received a charter which put it as official Little League when Joe Grosso was president. He's actually known as the father of Little League in Pacifica. And so years later, after Bill gets out of high school and serves in the military, he returns home to eventually coach Little League. For more than 40 years, Bill has coached and worked as a board member for the Pacifica National Little League. He was inducted into the Pacifica Sports Hall of Fame in 1999 for his dedication to the community. Bill, why don't you share some of your memories with those early years for us?
You hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it was 1956. 56, the first year, there was only a few teams. And I remember going down to Valimar School in the back. There was no back in Valimar, the school part. Wasn't built yet. But anyway, there was a backstop out there with a field that was just terrible. But they had the Val King Yankees practicing there. A friend of mine was on it, Greg Elmore. I told the guy I was only 8. Back then you had to be 9. Well, I lied to him. I got on the team. We only had 9 hats and 9 t-shirts. We had about 15 guys on the team. And if we switched, we had to take the guy that switched, take his hat and t-shirt and put it on. But anyway, we also played games. There was 2 fields in Sharp Park, same condition. A field up in Westfield, same condition. And Lindemar School, there was 2 fields. They played there for a couple of years. And then Fairway Park, it was either 58 or 59, got built by our parents. My father was involved with that. Mike Lusky's father, former pro here too. And they're the ones that built the first 2 fields at Fairway Park. The backfield didn't get built until 1970. But it's a lot of fun growing up playing Little League here. Gave us something to do. We didn't have any other sports back then. There was nothing. No football, no basketball. So the only thing we did was hang in the street, ride our bike. And we still had a great time. It was just like they said, Pacifica was great. And, it was great to learn. how to play ball. And it's been a long time, and now other people are taking over and doing a great job.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks very much. Bill was also a boxer.
What?
Did you box also?
Yeah, we had the Valleymar Boys Club boxing team. We used to travel all over the place. And I'll tell you what, that was a great thing. We fought everybody from San Francisco all the way down to San Jose. And we beat a team in San Francisco, who was one of the best teams. We ended up beating them. And then after that, nobody would fight us. Anyway, that was a long time coming and something to do. Like I said, there wasn't much to do around here. But anyway, I don't want to cut you.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks very much for sharing that with us. Bill was very involved, you know, like 40 plus years of being in the Little League, and you don't find that much anymore because it's hard to find people who will take on the job of doing something like this leadership. So if somebody puts 40 years of their life into the program, that's fantastic. Thanks, Bill. In the early years of Little League, the youth played as one organization in Pacifica. They just had one league. It's called Pacifica Little League. So in 1970, they decided, hey, the city is growing. We need to do something to get more kids to play and split up the city. So they divided the city into halves. They took the kids from Valleymar North and then the kids from Valleymar South and made 2 leagues. So the team from Valleymar South was called the Pacifica American Little League, and the team going north was called the National Little League. And the National Little League is where Bill spent most of your time, up in the north part of town. So that's how we got the 2 teams going. And later in the program, we're going to have this panel, and we're going to split for a second and bring another panel back up to the podium. And that's our 2014 American Little League team that went on to win the California State National Championship. So they'll be here later, so be sure you stay in your seats. Don't go anywhere after this first panel is completed. So until 1969, the Little League was running great. We had Whitefield, who was taking care of a lot of the kids. We had a couple of the fields. But it was decided that the field was going to go away. For 10 years, the Pillar of Fire Church, at that time, leased that field, and that was where Whitefield was, and that was where Alma Heights and now Pacific Bay Christian School is. They leased it to the Pedro Valley Softball Association, which was made up mainly of men and dads who played softball and lived here and built these houses and worked in the programs here. So they came under what they called the Pedro Valley Softball Association and the City of Pacifica. So between those 2 organizations, they leased Whitefield for $1 a year. Primarily, the field was used for Little League, on the condition that the taxes would be waived and the field be maintained by the city. Well, in 1969, that all changed. New tax laws came in. The Pillar Church wanted the city to pay the taxes, which was $3,700 at that time. And so the city said, nope, not going to pay the taxes. And so at that time, the church took that field and established a church, which became Alma Heights at that time, sent the Little League and other sports programs out searching for fields. A lot of people had put in countless hours of volunteer labor to build those fields, but it was no longer going to exist. So then in 1959, the Little League persuaded the city to let them build, as Bill said, a field at Fairway Park. Originally, that was to house a school, but they had enough power behind them that they talked the city into making that a field, which today is still there with the 3 fields that Bill talked about. And then later, at Terranova came in to be built in 1962 as a high school. And down at the far end of Terranova and Everglades laid a piece of property that was just dormant at that time. And so the Pacific American Little League went to the school and said, hey, could we use that field to play Little League Baseball. At that time, the principal of that school, his name was Hal Tonini, and he thought that was a great idea that that piece of property could be used. So the Little League got the field and they started playing there, and corporately they named the field Tonini Field after the principal. So that shows the history of Little League to where we are today. Over the years, since really 1969, the program has really excelled. And as I mentioned, up to the year that 2014, that the team went on to be the California Championship. So you can see right there that we've been around a long time, thanks to the leadership of parents that made it possible. So that sort of walks you through Little League, and then we talk about the girls. At that time, about 1969, the girls thought it was time that they became to shine on the diamond, and they wanted something for themselves. So happened just one day, a lady by the name of Shirley Sherman was in town in Pacifica. She had lived here for about 4 years. And she was walking the Lentmar Shopping Center, and she happened to notice a lot of young girls sort of loitering around the area there, and thought, boy, this is not good. They need to do something here to get these girls off the street and get them doing something. Shirley herself had been playing softball for years. She had come to Pacifica from Southern California. She had been playing softball for years. So she went to the PB&R department and suggested to them that they develop a girls softball program. At that time, Bobby Sox softball was really heavily popularized in Southern California and in the San Jose area. And so they suggested that maybe they talk with the Bobby Sox organizations to see if they can play softball up here. And of course, Bobby Sox softball was pushing teams further up north, and so Pacifica was just a natural place for them to land. And so the time was just right, and so they got together and they got a board members. Mostly the board members were, of course, women, because they were with their daughters, and the men usually took care of the fields and coached the teams and everything, but the board members were the ones that ran that Bobby Sox softball league. And over the years, we had a lot of teams, and of course, the first year that we started in 1972, and Diane is going to speak to that, is that we only started with maybe 200 girls and about 7 teams playing that year. But it progressed and it got stronger, and we eventually ended up going down to Buena Park in Southern California to play at what they call the Bobby Sox Softball World Series. So although we didn't win very many games down there, we showed them that we were very good and could win and play throughout the areas and the district tournaments, and eventually making our way down to Buena Park. So Diane was a board member in the early years of the program. So Diane, maybe you can share with us your memories of those first years.
Yeah,
No, you're doing right.
no, that's good.
No, you do not have to turn it on.
Okay, it wasn't on.
You do,
Okay, of course, my daughters started playing in 1972, and that was the year that the Bobby Sox players went to Buena Park for the first time, and it was an absolute thrill. And of course, the league had no money. I mean, so we had bake sales, we had car washes, we had donations, anything and everything we could to come up with enough money to go down to Buena Park. And it was a wonderful experience. You know, some flew, some drove, and you know, the girls, their eyes were about this big down there, you know, seeing all the other players, and because it was so new to them. And they lost. It's a double elimination tournament, and they lost both games, but they had fun. And then they went to Disneyland, and they had fun there, and it was just a wonderful experience. And then in 1974, just 2 years later, we ended up hosting the tournament, the minor tournament here. We played back up on top of Cabrillo School. And again, that was parents and coaches and managers and board members, and at that time I think the city was on strike. I'm not quite sure now. We're going back 53 years, so I'm not quite sure. Well, 51 years for the tournament. I'm not quite sure what the circumstances were now. But anyway, we had the fields up there weren't really much to shout about. And so we went to Terra Nova and borrowed their bleachers, took the bleachers apart, hauled them down, and up the hill, up the hill behind Cabrillo School. By that time we had our little snack truck, which was really interesting. It was an old panel truck, and Rich Seiler and the fellows at the fire department where he worked in the city worked on it, and they gutted the inside, and we had little little stoves in there, and it was. But driving it up the hill, you always were afraid you were going to tip it over because it was up to the board members to drive it up the hill. So I remember driving it up the hill. But anyway, we had to expand upon that for the tournament. So we set up a big tent and expanded the snack services in the tent, and we had the bleachers. And then we had to get the field shaped up, and we mowed the lawns with home lawnmowers. And to this day, I remember my back being so sore from out there. We were out there in the dark, mowing the lawns, getting them ready to go. And then unfortunately, our team was out in 2 games. So we had to stay, we were hosting the tournament, so we had to continue on for the rest of the tournament. I brought a program from then. It was really, it was quite an experience.
Thanks, I remember those years.
Thank you.
Really, if you think about it, it was really good timing that the girls softball program was starting to come around, because it was at that time that was soon to be adopted federal law Title 19 was being talked about, so to give equal rights to people and things like that, to make equality for people, and so it turned out good. And so the Bobby Sox really, and Diane will remember this, but I think Diane was probably out of it by 1985, but the program grew into about 1985. It was decided that the board members wanted to get out of the Bobby Sox program and go another direction. So they joined the American Softball Association, and to this day, the Pacific Girls are a member of the American Softball Association and still playing softball, which is great, because they could have just stopped the program right there, but they decided to just go another direction. So they still play Cabrillo. Cabrillo's still there, and it still is as shabby as it was back in 1970, and it's not going to grow. Although I understand that Cabrillo is adding a gymnasium at the school later, hopefully in the next couple of years, so that would be in addition to the school there. So I hope you had a chance to look at some of the posters up there that Pat Kramer was the one in charge of. But she spent literally hours doing this, so yeah. Let's see, so now we're going to jump into a little bit more advanced baseball. Of course, every young boy who plays baseball dreams of playing in the major leagues. Well, you've seen Keith Hernandez, you've seen Bob McClure play in the World Series. That's a far jump to get there, but to make the major leagues is just a dream come true for a lot of kids. So the first Pacifica to make the majors was Mitch Morales, that we talked about, and our last person to play in the major leagues is our guest today, Greg Reynolds. Greg played 8 years as professional baseball, first with the Colorado Rockies, then the Cincinnati Reds, and finally ending up in Japan. Can you imagine playing in Japan? That's fantastic. He's going to share that with us. He was a Terra Nova graduate and an outstanding athlete, both in football and baseball. He was drafted by Colorado in 2006 while a student at Stanford University. He played baseball at Stanford, where he helped the school win a Pac-10 championship in 2004. And like Bill Hooper, Greg is also a member of the Pacifica Sports Hall of Fame. And we're going to ask Greg here to share his road to Major League Baseball, starting as a little kid in the Little League fields.
Yeah, just kind of echoing what everybody else has already said, but I grew up just falling in love with baseball at a young age. I grew up in the west side of Fairway Park, so I was able to ride my bike to the Fairway fields and spent most of my childhood there, I would think. That was kind of like my home away from home. When I was one of the kids that woke up and didn't matter what time the game was, I put on my uniform, the first thing I did, and I showed up dirty to the game before I even played. And I think that through Little League and the whole community being involved, it just kind of set the foundation for my love of the game. And like our people have already said that all the parents, all the coaches that volunteered their time, made sure, did all the work on the fields, got the sponsorships together. It just made a world of difference. Coming from a relatively small town like Pacifica, it's pretty incredible that we have had 2 players playing against each other in the major leagues and a few other major league players and a lot of people that go on and play in college. And really, it's crazy to see how the community, no matter how far you go in baseball or even not in baseball, the community always finds a way to come back and greet you at the most interesting times. I had my major league debut down in San Diego, and it was just crazy to see all the familiar faces that were in the stands that drove down, and a lot of them were from Little League, and all my friends to this day are those friendships began in Little League. And one of my best friends throughout my entire life, he gave a speech at my wedding, and he made sure to remind me right before, after I got married, that he beat me in the city championship in Little League. And there's a couple other players that were on the Pacific American Marlins team that beat us in the city championship. So it's just little things like that they always come back and make you smile, make you remember where you came from. This other Pacifica team coached by Steve Falk, when I was playing in Japan, I was streaming the games on my computer in the locker room in Japan, watching those guys on their run down to San Bernardino, because I remembered what it was like trying to, win district and go to state and try to further yourself. And it was just a fun time when you're in Little League. It's about nothing else but being with your friends, having fun. There's no bigger picture. It's all about having fun, creating relationships and lifelong friendships. So I love being a part of Little League here. I think that it's continued to get better and better. It's obviously come a long way from when the Hernandezes and the Moraleses and the Valeros were just starting it, and I'm thankful for them for getting it going, because there's a lot of people that have come through our Little League and a lot of people who have gone very far, and it wouldn't have happened without them and getting it going. So I'm just proud to be a part of it.
Can you share that moment that you walked onto the San Francisco with Pac Bell or AT&T Park or Oracle now? Can you recall that last moment you walked on the field to pitch?
Yep, it was a dream come true. That was the stadium that first it was Candlestick, but I always envisioned myself playing for the Giants, and then it was, just playing out there on that field. And I was lucky enough to, when I was with the Reds, we came to San Francisco and played a doubleheader, and I started the second game, and I was warming up, and this is when the bullpens were right next to the crowd, and all my friends were there, and half of them were in half Giants with a Reds hat, and it was just, it was like my brothers who swore they would never root against the Giants, but, they'd find a way to have like a Rocky shirt under a Giants jersey or something like that. So it was just surreal to be there and to run out on that field. And, that game, most games I can remember, every pitch and kind of why I threw it, because, I was a pitcher and I could think along with the game, but that game, I couldn't remember anything. Just running on the field. The first 3 innings, it was just like a complete blur. I was just numb. I had no idea what was going on. And then it wasn't until after when I watched the video, I finally, didn't really have a recollection of it. But that was the coolest. That was probably one of my favorite moments, was just playing in San Francisco and having, seeing so many coaches that, had coached me in Little League, in high school, all the way up, even my DiMaggio coaches. I played DiMaggio for, a few years, and it was just amazing to see how many people came out and were still following. And again, just thankful for all those people that helped me along the way.
Thanks, Greg. I don't know about you, but I thoroughly enjoy myself today. This is fantastic, these dreams of these people and things like that. But today we've focused on the early years of Little League and girls softball, of course. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I have, and I want to thank our panelists for being here. So let's give them a round of applause. Now, as I mentioned, please be seated as we're getting the program changed over to another panelist coming up here. So just please be seated. We're going to bring up to the podium the 2014 California State Champion Pacifica American Little League Baseball teams. But for now, we're going to have an open mic. So what I'd like to do is that we have several former Bobby Soxers and Little Leaguers in the audience. So for the next few minutes, we welcome you to say a couple words of your memories of your years growing up in Pacifica and playing. So, who's first? Oh, okay.
We only have one extra mic. Hope to have two. You got it, everybody. If you speak with the mic, pull it and speak into the top of the mic close to your face.
I'm used to speaking in a mic.
Okay, so
yeah. Thank you, though. Thank you very much for Bobby Sox softball, because I'm here to support the women's Bobby Sox softball, or women's sports in general. This picture right here, where is it? Is it me? I was on the very first Bobby Sox softball team in Pacifica. If you notice it, no helmet, no cleats, long pants. I mean, it has changed so much. My first coach was Martha Diaz, the first woman, I think, related to Mike Diaz, yes. She was my first coach, and we had 3 teams. And we started out practicing at Whitefield. There was no Cabrillo High School yet. And then in Pacifica, all this was in Pacifica. I grew up in Pacifica for 37 years, so I graduated in 1975 and I was born in 1957. So it's come a long way, and that's why I'm up here talking, because my trophy compared to Hernandez's trophy is that little tiny thing inside there, inside that case. That's what we had. And they didn't even have our names written on it. We had those little punch things where you punch your names in there and you put it on, it was on our trophy. So we came in first out of 3 teams. There was Easy TV, Crespi Shell, and I can't remember the 3rd team. But we practiced at Whitefield, and then eventually they got it going at Cabrillo High School, at Cabrillo Elementary. And so to take me back to growing up in Pacifica, I grew up with 3 brothers who are back there watching the Warriors basketball game. So this is how my life went, and it didn't matter. I wanted to play, and the only way I could play, I remember as a little kid, is if I chased the ball. They wouldn't let me get up to bat, but I had to chase the ball, and I got pretty good in the outfield chasing the ball, and then they would give me my ups, and I'd be the last one to get up, and then my brothers would take the time, and I'd be up to bat. So that's how all my skills came to about. I remember Keith Hernandez in my backyard playing wiffle ball. He was really good friends with my brother Dan, and he was playing wiffle ball. I can remember, the only vivid memory I have of Keith is the wiffle ball would go over to our neighbor's house, and Keith was up on top of the fence going to get it. That's, my whole thing. So I grew up with a lot of the baseball players from Pacifica. But I wanted to play. I always wanted to play, and I was so taking me from Bobby Sox softball, we were the first championships at Terra Nova High School.
my team was. And then I went on to CSM, College of San Mateo. And I remember I went to Cal to play, I went to a volleyball camp because I played both volleyball and basketball. And the volleyball coach wanted me to play for Cal, but at that time they didn't have scholarships for women, and I couldn't afford to go to Cal, and I was an average student, forget about it. I wasn't gonna go, I was too intimidated to go to Cal anyway. And then so I went to CSM because that was the best school in the Bay Area at the time. And I had a coach named Coach Tom Martinez. Any other girls in here that played softball, Bobby Sox softball? Seahorse? I'm always the first on all this stuff. Okay, oh yeah, that's right, yeah. Okay, so I went on to play there, and I was the first woman from Pacifica to receive an athletic scholarship for softball at Cal. So I'm really proud of that, and it all started in Pacifica. It's incredible.
Good job.
Yeah, so I love Pacifica.
Doreen is also a member of the Pacific Sports Hall of Fame, of course, for that outstanding.
Yeah, and then I just wanted to give a kudos out to you because I was telling Laura that they didn't have the stats back then that they have. If you type in my name that I went to Cal in 1978, 77, 78, my name doesn't come up because they didn't have stats back then. Here's what's my stats. His newspaper articles were my stats. And that's what got me in because you have to have stats and you have to have videos and all that. They didn't have it back then. So we've come a long way, and it took us 20 years from Little League, right? Is that what they said? 57 they started?
Yeah.
57. And I was on the 1970 Bobby Sox softball. So thank you for the opportunity because we still have a long ways to go.
Yeah. Thanks, Doreen. Thanks very much. Anybody else want to say something about your years? You want to say anything?
I could say something really quick. I played, I'm trying to remember what years it was, but I can't recall. So it must have been like 73 or through 75 or 76. And my memories are just very fond memories. And I made so many friends with all the girls that played on all the teams. And I don't think it's working. But on all the fields, I came from North Pacifica. So we would have to go all the way to Linamar down there. And I remember riding our bike down there. Like everybody said, it was just a free time that you didn't have to worry about anything. Our parents would let us go all the way down there on a bike. But no, it was a blast. It was so fun meeting so many people, playing in all those teams, playing all-stars, and then going on to just play for fun. Yeah. And my favorite part is what Doreen just said, is finding my name in the newspaper and all the wonderful things that I did and all the home runs I did. And I made Athlete of the Week, and you took my picture, you came to my house and you took my picture. So yeah, that was really fun, and I appreciate yours.
Thank you very much. That's great. Athlete of the Week was a big thing back then. It was great. You know, for me, it was fun writing about all that stuff. But yeah, like I said, I've been doing it for years, and I'm still writing just a little bit with the Tribune now. As of course, the Pacifica Tribune was sold to the Hampton Bay Review people, and so I don't write as much, but occasionally I'll pick up my pen and write something about somebody. So don't be surprised if this is not in the paper one these days. So that's great. Now,
I think we should thank Horace for being such a great moderator. And I just want you all to know that Horace is being inducted into the Peninsula Sports Hall of Fame on June 27th. All right. If you want to go, you can certainly go. But just for now, we have Cracker Jacks, we have peanuts, we have lemonade. Please come help yourself. And you are welcome to stay as long as you like. We have this poster display of Pat's, which is just fabulous. It will stay up, so if you don't get to see it today, come back.
How long will it be up?
Oh.
No, but maybe only a month because it's such a specialized.
Right, at least a month. And we're open Thursdays and Saturdays from 1 to 4. So you can come and read the whole time. The gift shop is open if you want cheese. If you haven't heard about our cheese, that's another whole story. And you can find out in there. And there are Keith Hernandez books in the back. The museum upstairs is open. So thank you all so much for coming. Thank you.
please fix the handle for a while. Be sure you get your Cracker Jacks and everything. But first, I want to be sure that our panelists join me over here for pictures.
Pictures,
please.
we
Yeah.
have to have pictures. Right, over here.
Thank you.